Alright, exactly what it says on the tin. Let's look at forms in React. Starting from very simple forms to the more interesting, dynamically adding form fields. If you want to jump to that, just click on the relevant timestamp below to skip this first half. Okay, for those who are still here, let's pop open the tin by creating a new React app. Whilst this is loading, I'll just do a little bit more of the intro. We've done some basic form handling in the to-do board and the task tracker, but more likely than not, when you're working with forms, it's much longer than just a few input fields on a to-do list. You'd want to be able to do some more sophisticated stuff. And that's what this video is for, leveling up a little bit more on the forms. As for what kind of form, I wanted it to be something vaguely interesting, so I stole some ideas from Hinge, the dating app, and no, I'm not on the app. Okay, let's install Tailwind CSS. I don't think we'll be using JSX today, but just in case we do, and because I always seem to forget to add it into the config file these days, let's just add it in for preventative measure. Get rid of everything we don't need. I'll zoom in a bit more. There we go. That's a bit better, isn't it? Okay, we'll start off with the form tag, and inside, let's bring out fieldset. Fieldset is useful for grouping related elements in a form, and if we have fieldset, we should have the legend, which acts as a caption for the fieldset element. Let's call this fieldset about you. Once we add the border, you'll see that the fieldset and legend automatically gives us that more elegant border, if you get what I mean. If not, you'll see it later. Since this fieldset is about the user, let's get the user to fill in their first name. And we'll have a placeholder for that. And handle input on change. Let's add a placeholder handle input function now so we don't see the big red error messages when we refresh. Let's add the handle input function once the about you field set is all done, because we'll handle all the input data at the same time for maximum efficiency, and because I'm kind of doing this on the fly, so I don't know exactly which input fields I'll be putting in yet. My mind is pretty blank for variable names, etc. So let's collectively do it at the end. Okay, we'll add some basic styling. The focus is data handling, so I'll only do the minimum necessary in terms of styling. This is what I consider as minimum necessary. Some people might be happy with the bare basics, little or no styling, and other people probably want more color, so you adjust it how you want it to look like. And in this what's your name bit, let's add last name as well. It's exactly the same as first name, so we just need to copy and paste and change the ID and name here. If you haven't used this keyboard shortcut yet, now is a great time to get started. If you select a letter, a number, a word, a symbol, whatever in the text editor, and press Command D or Control D, it will highlight anything that's an exact match, and when you change one, the rest will change at the same time. It's not case sensitive, so you'll have to watch out for the capitalizations. OnChange is still handle input, so we don't need to worry about that. We'll tweak the styling a little bit more. And let's add what's your email. Same drill, label, input, type is email. Let's add a type for the previous two as well. Those are just text. The ID will be email, as will name. And we'll add some placeholder text. And on change event, it's still handle input. Now, let's add the date of birth next, and you'll see the date picker. So the ID and name will be DOB, date of birth. Type is date, which will automatically generate a date picker for us. The placeholder won't show up on screen, but I like to add it anyway. And on change, still input. Let's just copy over the styling from above. Put each of these Q&As in a div, and let's just tweak the spacing a little bit. Great. Now, with the context in mind, if this is a dating type of form, then we probably want to limit the date of birth to only those who are 18 or over, right? It's just a little bit better for user experience. We can do that by setting max to, let's say, 2005, January, today's date. Next, what's your gender? Let's do this in a drop-down list with select and options. Let's have the options as male, female, male to female, female to male, and non-binary to keep up with the times. We'll add the ID and name in the select tag. And the value for each option will be whatever value that we want to record when the user clicks on the applicable gender. Everything so far in this select and options block is exactly what you would do in HTML, so nothing revolutionary here. And with that, let's just leave it here, eh? It's probably enough. You can obviously add radial selections and checkboxes, etc., but that's all pretty much the same as what you would do in HTML. You do it once, you've done it a million times. Let's get the width of these input boxes looking a bit more comfortable. Let's move on to the React stuff. Use state, obviously. We'll import it, and let's call this section user info. So const user info set user info equals use state. Inside the use state, we'll have an object. The object will consist of first name, last name, email, and gender. Because we'll be utilizing this object in our handle input function, we need to make sure that the spelling in our useState object matches those that we've put down for either the ID or the name of the input tags. I've used exactly the same spelling for ID and name, so I don't have to worry about it. But if you have different spellings, pick one, either the ID or name. Now, in our handle input, we'll do the destructured version of e.target. If you picked ID instead of name, you'll want to put ID here instead of name. And then we just need to set user info as ... user info, and then either the name or the ID in square brackets, colon, value. The ... is used as a REST syntax here to collect all remaining elements into an array in the format of name and value. ... is also a spread operator which unpacks collected elements like an array into single elements. It's a bit like a suitcase. You're either packing things into it or taking things out. Now, if we console log user info, go to our browser and refresh. As we're filling in the form, you can see data is being logged as we type. And we didn't have to set the value of each individual input field, right? So you can see this is so much easier when you're working with longer forms. And the gender is empty because, let's see, we didn't actually add an onChange event in our drop-down select tag. That's good, isn't it? There we go. Now, the adding input fields dynamically section. If you've not heard of this term, it's basically every time you click on add, it generates a new set of empty input boxes for the user to put in the required information. So Hinge has these prompts, right? Interesting questions that people answer and display on their profiles as conversation starters. So let's take that as an example. We'll set one up now in a new field set, just like our About You section above. Let's call it prompts. And then a drop down with the list of questions, so exactly the same select an options concept as above. I'll just pick out a handful of questions that I've seen online. copy and paste and then change it with our Command D or Control D if you're using Windows. Cool. Below it, we'll have a text area for people to write their responses. And if we just borrow that same handle input function, and set it to on change as opposed to on can play. You can see that it's coming through. Now let's add an add prompt button so the user can add as many of these prompts and answers as they want. On click, we'll handle add prompt. In order to add a new set of prompts and answer, we need to break out the prompt and answer from the user info bit and move it into a new state. In this new prompt state, we want to set the default to not just be an object, but an array of objects. Because as the user is adding more prompts, we want to push their subsequent prompts into this collection of prompts, right? So we'll need to add it into our array. And because we're doing this dynamically, we no longer need to keep track of the index number hard-coded. which means we no longer need the 1 because we'll be adding the index number to it dynamically. And let's have a timestamp because we'll be mapping out the prompts and I want to use this as a unique reference point for the key later. Great. Okay. And for the onChange event in our prompts, let's have something called handle prompt instead. And I'll take the event and index. Sorry, handle prompt, new function, not handle add prompt, which is our button. In our handle prompt function, let's have the destructured e.target like before. And then let's have new prompts equals our collection of prompts so far, symbolized by the ... acting as a spread operator. Then our new prompts will take on the index number and set the value to the name. Finally, we set prompts as this new set of prompts. When we want to add a new empty set of prompts via the add button, all we need to do is to set prompts as ... prompts with the objects looking like our default state or within square brackets. That's it. If you watched the previous videos, this should all look very, very similar. Can you remember how to delete a set of these prompts? In the meantime, if we console log it, everything is here. The prompts are now separated from the user info. And as you add new prompts, it's tracking everything. Here's an opportunity to pause the video to see if you can go ahead and remove a set of prompts yourself. Alright, let's add the handle delete function. Let's put a placeholder function here for now. And let's see. Let's put a remove button next to the prompt here. We want to handle delete on click, and we want to feed through the index number, which means it's easier to handle if the delete button is inside the map method. In our handle delete function, we'll set delete prompts as our existing prompts. And then delete prompts, splice the item at the index number, and we only want to cut out one item, so 1. And we set prompts as delete prompts. That's it. It's because of all of this adding and removing by index numbers that we want to set the key as the timestamp. If you want to see what happens, try using the index number and see how the data gets a bit chaotic and messed up in the mix of things. Anyway, let's change this first option to make it clearer that this is a drop-down list. Let's call it select prompt instead. Okay, and let's see if our handle delete works. It does! Great. And that's it for today. See you next time.